Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report, a company update from Sitka Gold, recapping the company's drill results from 2024 at the RC Gold project in the Yukon. Just yesterday, January 7th, the company released the final assay results from the slightly over 9,000 meters of drilling that happened all last year in 2024. I am chatting again with Mike Burke, Director and Vice President of Corporate Development. Sitka Gold is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol SIG, on the OTCQB under the symbol SITKF, and the Frankfurt Exchange 1RF. Mike, let's talk about this overall 2024 drill program focused at the Blackjack zone. That's where majority of the resource is from, as well as testing a couple new areas, the Rhosgobel and Pukelman areas. We already touched on the Rhosgobel results when we chatted at the tail end of November. Let's focus on the Blackjack results here. This was majority of the drilling focused. You were looking to expand the overall zone of mineralization. What can you tell us? What did the drilling yield from last year's drilling at Blackjack?
Yeah, that's been the focus of the last couple of years is expanding the resource at the Blackjack that was put out in January of 2023. So this last release, we summarized the year's work as well as put out the final 4 holes that we drilled this season on the Blackjack. So we drilled an additional hole to greater than 700 meters depth. We drilled another hole to the southeast, expanding it in the direction of the southeast, as well as up dip hole, a shallow hole to fill in a gap between a couple of holes that extended mineralization to surface. So all part of the program of expanding that Blackjack zone beyond the current resource that we put out in 2023 in January. So, that initial resource was based on 11,000 meters of drilling. We've done an additional about twice that much in the Blackjack. We've had 13 additional plus 100 gram meter intersections outside of that resource area, 9 plus 100 gram meter intersections within it. So we're extremely happy. We haven't closed this mineralized zone off and the deposit's expanding. So yeah, that's a real quick summary of what we did on the Blackjack this year.
So yesterday's news release in Table 1 breaks down a lot of the drill results, even from a couple years ago. Let's focus on Blackjack here, and let's talk about the overall grade that you are seeing. Any sort of consistency there? You're hitting very long intercepts, multiple 100 meters in a number of these holes. Grade, though, what have you noticed in terms of consistency, and are there any pockets of higher grade areas within this Blackjack area?
Yeah, if you look within our drill table that you mentioned, there's definitely higher grade areas, plus 2 grams. Generally we in our drill holes get, pretty significant intersections of 1 gram, but some sub intervals that go up to 2 over broad distances. And every now and then we hit some pretty high grade, like half-ounce material in some larger veins we hit within this system. So, like I mentioned, since we put out that Blackjack resource, we've had a lot of our best drill intersections in the Blackjack were in this last drill season in 2024. We've been really pleased with the results. The market's recognized, the higher grades that we're hitting. So we do expect when we do upgrade our resource that it, should increase. Obviously, it's going to increase in size. There's drill hits outside of that resource area, and a lot of them are pretty high grade. So we're confident that the grade and tonnage are going to be attractive when we get to putting out a new resource on this project.
So, Mike, I have to ask you, is that going to happen this year? Will you be upgrading the resource with all this additional drilling you've done in the last 2 years?
Yeah, we're certainly at the point where we could upgrade that. So we're looking at those numbers now and we'll make a decision on that. We haven't, specified a date that we're going to put out a new resource, but we're obviously, always looking at that and doing the compilation work. So we'll be announcing a resource at some point in the future. Obviously, I'm just not going to put a firm number on it. So we're pretty excited about that. We think it should be a good day.
So let's talk about some of the other new areas that were tested this year. As I said, Rhosgobel, we talked about that already. Pukelman, we have the initial results from that first pass drilling that you completed last year at this Pukelman intrusion. We saw some long intercepts, a slightly lower grade than what we have seen from the Blackjack zone. What can you tell us about the potential that you're seeing in Pukelman now that you have at least some early on results?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty happy. The market has high expectations for Sitka Gold to hit blackjack style grade on every drill hole. But we're an exploration company, and this is the first drill holes into the guts of the Pukelman intrusion. And we did. We hit, 300 meters at 0.34, which is, it's lower grade, but within that, there's several intersections of better than a gram. But we have to remember this is exploration. These are the first two holes into this target. There's other drilling, half a kilometer away that hit some higher grades. So really what we're doing is, doing that initial testing, vectoring in, using this information to home in on the higher grades. So we're pretty pleased. This intrusion is nicely mineralized with gold. So yeah, our challenge is to keep exploring within that intrusion, vector in on the controls of mineralization and find the higher grades of it. But certainly, anybody, if this was a standalone exploration project that had nothing to do with Sitka Gold and somebody put out these first two drill results, everybody'd be pretty happy about it. And so we're pretty excited about this target. So it didn't produce, the lucky hit that we had on the discovery hole, the Blackjack. Exploration companies don't get as lucky as Sitka Gold and hit 200 meters of better than a gram on their first drill hole in a zone. But hitting, 300 meters of 0.3, a broadly, consistently mineralized system on your first holes is pretty exciting too.
So, Mike, what do you prioritize for future drill programs then? Do you prioritize Rhosgobel? Do you prioritize Pukelman? Or do you go after any new areas that could have come from that land that you acquired from Victoria Gold last year?
Yeah, certainly they're all viable targets, and we're funded for next year for 30,000 meters. We still have work to do on the Blackjack. We drilled a second deep drill hole on the Blackjack that was announced here, hole 72. It was well mineralized over its entire length, half a gram over its entire length, but it didn't hit the same high grades at depth that the original hole 68, but it was a 90-meter step out. So we have to do more work to continue to vector in on that high grade zone that we've discovered at depth at Blackjack. But having only two holes at depth, well, there's a lot of work left to do there. So that's obviously the Blackjack as it's open, to the southeast at depth and to the northeast towards the saddle zone. There's a lot of work to do there. So that's obviously going to be a focus. The Rhosgobel produced some pretty great results. We're really happy with the initial drilling there. Pukelman as well, moving just to the south. As I mentioned, the contact zone is an area that has received historical drilling. We didn't drill that this year. We weren't able to get to it before the end of the year. That's another target area. And there's another area called the Bear Paw Breccia that's had drilling in the past. So we've got, five solid areas that we need to focus in on. And that's what we'll be doing in 2025 with the budget and the drills that we have.
Now, that's a big turning point for the company, too, right? Is that investors took notice of the drill results last year in 2024. You managed to raise enough money to do a 30,000 meter program. That is a big program for Sitka Gold. Does this all happen in 2025 then? Do you want to go out and drill all 30,000 meters? Would you take a staged approach to it? What is the strategy to managing this money now that you have the ability to drill 30,000 meters?
Well, I think what's critical, I mean, that's a great question, Corey. Um, a critical point is that we've got a cornerstone deposit in the Blackjack, higher grade than you typically see in these reduced intrusion related systems. And that's what the market's excited about is the grades that we're seeing in the Blackjack. Then we've got all these other, earlier stage exploration targets, Rhosgobel, Pukelman, Eiger, even where there's a lower grade deposit that we outlined and haven't fully drilled off. So we've hit these, mineralized zones external to the Blackjack. We have to go in there and test them. We have to zone into the higher grade parts of those, as well as look at this property holistically. There's a source to this mineralization. Is there a higher grade source that we're vectoring in on through the Blackjack going towards these other deposits? So it's now that we have the entire Clear Creek intrusive complex, it lets us do this work to really refine our model, make more discoveries of hopefully higher grade material, but also having that Blackjack as a higher grade deposit. It's a real cornerstone to this area. All these targets that we're talking about are in a 3 by 5 kilometer area. They'd have shared infrastructure. So, each of these areas could, develop into standalone deposits that feed into a central complex. So it's a really exciting area. There's gold all over the place. And it's just our job to really use that 30,000 meters of drilling and the money that investors have given us to really figure it out now that we have this entire district to ourselves. I mean, this is the first opportunity. We just got it late in the season last year and we're able to do a little bit of test work in this Rhosgobel and Pukelman area. But next year we've got, the full plate ahead of us that we can get in there and really sink our teeth into this area and unravel the story and hopefully produce some great results in these other areas that we're focusing in on.
All right, Mike. Thank you very much for the update. Again, I'll post a link to the Sitka Gold website in the show notes. And if you have any follow-up questions for Mike, please email those to me. I'll get him to address those on our next calls. Again, Mike Burke, Director and Vice President of Corporate Development at Sitka Gold. Mike, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Corey.